Ramona Anderson's voice cut through the executive boardroom like a blade through silk, precise and impossible to ignore. That projection is based on flawed data and outdated consumer behavior patterns. Every head turned toward her, and Cade Ingram, CEO of Ingram Hotels, found himself doing what he had done increasingly often over the past 3 months, leaning forward with genuine interest instead of the irritation he should probably feel. She stood at the far end of the conference table, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, brown eyes sharp and unflinching as they met his across the polished mahogany. "The data comes from our analytics team," Cade said, keeping his tone measured. "They've been tracking these patterns for 5 years. Exactly." Ramona tapped her tablet screen, and the presentation on the wall changed to her own slide deck. 5 years ago, business travelers prioritized different amenities. Your numbers show a 15% increase in demand for premium suites, but you're not accounting for the 30% surge in remote work flexibility. Business travelers aren't booking week-long stays anymore. They're booking 3 nights maximum and expecting workspace functionality that your current renovations don't address. Cade studied the graphs she had pulled up. Around the table, his senior team shifted uncomfortably. Marcus Chen, his CFO, cleared his throat. "Miss Anderson, you're here as a consultant for marketing strategy, not operations planning. Marketing strategy is useless if the product doesn't match market demand," Ramona said without missing a beat. "You brought me in to boost bookings by 20%. I'm telling you that renovating 200 premium suites according to these specs will cost you $8 million and yield maybe a 5% increase. Redesign 50 suites as flexible workspaces with upgraded tech infrastructure, and you'll see the numbers you actually want." Cade watched her, noting the way she stood her ground without aggression, presenting facts rather than opinions. She had been arguing with him since her first day at Ingram Hotels, and he realized with something like surprise that these Monday morning strategy meetings had become the highlight of his week. "Show me the breakdown," he said. Marcus looked at him sharply. "Cade, we've already approved the renovation plans. Then we'll unapprove them if Miss Anderson's numbers are stronger." Cade gestured toward the screen. "Go ahead." Ramona's expression didn't change, but he caught the briefest flicker of satisfaction in her eyes before she launched into her presentation. For the next 20 minutes, she dismantled their entire renovation strategy with data, consumer surveys, and competitor analysis that his own team should have caught. It was impressive. She was impressive. When the meeting finally adjourned, Cade gathered his notes slowly, watching as the other executives filed out. Ramona packed up her materials with efficient movements, and he found himself timing his exit to intersect with hers at the door. "You enjoy this," he said as they walked into the hallway together. She glanced at him, surprised. "Enjoy what?" Proving everyone wrong. "I enjoy being right," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Cade smiled slightly. "You could present your ideas without systematically dismantling mine first." "I could," Ramona agreed, "but would you listen as carefully if I did?" The honesty caught him off guard. They had reached the elevator bay, and she pressed the button for the 15th floor where the consulting team had their temporary offices. Cade pressed 20 for his executive suite. "Probably not," he admitted. "Most consultants tell me what they think I want to hear." "Then you hired the wrong consultants." The elevator arrived and they stepped inside together. "I'm not here to make you feel good about decisions you've already made. I'm here to make your hotels more profitable. By arguing with me in front of my entire leadership team." "Yes." Cade laughed, a genuine sound that surprised him. "You don't worry about job security much, do you? Are you going to fire me for being right? Ramona asked, meeting his eyes directly. No. He realized it was true. I'm going to have my team run your numbers and probably redesign an $8 million renovation project. Good. The elevator slowed at the 15th floor. That's why you're successful. You're smart enough to change your mind when presented with better information. She stepped out and Cade found himself holding the door. Same time next week. Strategy meetings are scheduled for every Monday at 9, Ramona said, turning back with a slightly puzzled expression. Why would that change? No reason. Cade let the door close, then leaned against the elevator wall as it carried him upward. He was smiling, he realized. Actually smiling about a meeting where someone had publicly challenged his judgment and made him look foolish in front of his executives. His assistant, Patricia, looked up when he entered the executive suite. She had been with him for 12 years and could read his moods better than anyone. Good meeting. Expensive meeting, Cade said. Get Marcus and the renovation team in my office this afternoon. We need to run new numbers. On the premium suite project, Patricia's eyebrows rose. That was just approved last week, and it's going to be revised this week. Cade paused at his office door. What do you know about Ramona Anderson, the consultant? Not much. She's from the Morrison Group, top of her field in hospitality marketing. They bill her out at $500 an hour, which I thought was excessive until I saw her first report. Patricia tilted her head. Why? Just curious. Cade went into his office, but he found himself distracted throughout the afternoon. Between calls with investors and reviewing quarterly reports, his mind kept circling back to the way Ramona had stood in that boardroom, utterly confident and completely unimpressed by his title or his reputation. Most people treated him differently once they knew he was worth close to $300 million. The Ingram Hotels chain had 17 luxury properties across the country, and Cade had built the business from the 3 failing hotels he had inherited from his father into an empire that competed with major hospitality brands. Success at that level changed how people interacted with you. They either wanted something from you or were intimidated by you. Ramona Anderson didn't seem to be either. The following Monday, Cade arrived at the strategy meeting 10 minutes early. He told himself it was because he wanted to review the revised renovation plans with his team, but Patricia's knowing look suggested she saw through that excuse. Ramona arrived exactly 2 minutes before the meeting started, carrying her tablet and a coffee from the shop across the street, instead of the expensive machine in their executive lounge. She wore a navy blue blazer and white blouse, professional and polished, and Cade wondered briefly what she looked like outside of work before shoving that thought firmly aside. Morning, she said, taking the same seat she had occupied the previous week. Morning. Cade distributed the updated renovation plans. My team ran your numbers. You were right about the workspace demand. I usually am. Ramona scanned the documents, and he watched her eyes track across the pages with sharp focus. This is good. You kept some premium suites for the traditional luxury market, but shifted the majority toward functional design. Smart compromise. It wasn't a compromise, Cade said. It was the better strategy, like you said. She looked up at him, and something in her expression softened slightly. It takes confidence to admit that. Or maybe I just like being profitable more than I like being right. Those don't have to be mutually exclusive. Ramona pulled up her tablet. Which brings me to today's topic, your restaurant concept for the Chicago property. Cade felt himself tense. The Chicago flagship was his pet project, a complete renovation of the hotel where his father had started the business 40 years ago. He had spent months planning every detail, including a high-end steakhouse that would attract both hotel guests and local clientele. I suppose you're going to tell me everything wrong with it, he said. Not everything. Ramona's eyes glinted with something that might have been amusement, just the parts that will lose you money. The rest of his team filed in, and Cade settled back to watch Ramona work. She waited until Marcus had presented the restaurant proposal, complete with chef interviews, menu concepts, and financial projections. Then she pulled up her own analysis. The food concept is excellent, she began. High-end steakhouses perform well in the Chicago market, and your chef selection is solid. The problem is your seating capacity and price point. You're designing for 80 seats at an average check of $120 per person. That requires consistent 70% occupancy just to break even on operational costs. Chicago has the client base for that, Marcus interjected. Chicago has a dozen established steakhouses with loyal followings, Ramona countered. You're the new entry. Even with the Ingram reputation, you'll need 6 months to build a steady customer base. Meanwhile, you're hemorrhaging money on a space that sits 40% empty most nights. She advanced her slide. Redesign for 60 seats. Increase the average check to $160 by adding premium cuts and a sommelier program, and you break even at 50% capacity. You create an exclusive atmosphere that justifies the price point and reduces overhead. Smaller restaurants feel less impressive, Cade said, though he could already see the logic in her argument. Smaller restaurants feel exclusive, Ramona corrected. Right now, your design says we hope enough people show up. 60 seats with a reservation waitlist says you're lucky we can fit you in. Marcus frowned. That's psychology, not economics. Economics is psychology, Ramona said. Luxury branding is about perception and value. You can have the best steaks in Chicago, but if your dining room feels empty, guests will assume you're not successful and wonder why. Fill a smaller room and they'll assume you're in demand. Cade tapped his fingers on the table, thinking, what about private dining? We have corporate clients who need space for business dinners. Build out a private room that seats 12 to 16, Ramona said immediately. Charge a premium for exclusive use. Corporate clients will pay extra for privacy, and you add a revenue stream that doesn't cannibalize your main dining room. You've thought this through. It wasn't a question. I don't bring up problems without solutions. Ramona met his gaze. That would just be complaining. Cade found himself wanting to smile again. Fair enough. Marcus, get with the restaurant design team. I want revised plans by the end of the week. The meeting continued, and Cade noticed that while Ramona challenged nearly every presentation, she did it with specific alternatives and data to back her suggestions. She wasn't being contrary for the sake of it. She was genuinely trying to make each project better, even when it meant more work for his team. After the meeting ended, he caught up with her again at the elevators. Do you ever just agree with something? Ramona considered the question seriously. When it's the best option available, yes. That doesn't happen as often as you might think. Because everyone else is wrong, or because you have high standards. Because most people confuse familiar with optimal, she said. They do things the way they've always been done and wonder why they get the same results they've always gotten. The elevator arrived and they stepped inside. Cade realized he had pressed 15 without thinking about it, and Ramona noticed. Your office is on 20, she said. I know. He didn't explain further, and she didn't ask. When the doors opened on her floor, he followed her out. Do you have a few minutes? Ramona checked her watch. I have a conference call at 10:30. This won't take long. Cade gestured toward the temporary consulting offices. I want to see your workspace analysis report, the full version, not just the summary you presented. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. This way. The consulting team had been given a corner of the 15th floor with glass-walled offices and collaborative workspaces. Ramona's office was neat but clearly used, with 3 monitors displaying various spreadsheets and market analysis reports. She pulled up the workspace document and transferred it to the largest screen. For the next 20 minutes, Cade reviewed her research. She had surveyed 2,000 business travelers, analyzed booking patterns across competing hotel chains, and built predictive models based on remote work trends. The level of detail was extraordinary. "This is more thorough than what my own analytics team produces," he said finally. "Your analytics team is busy running reports you request," Ramona said. "I have the luxury of investigating what I think matters rather than what I'm told to track. You work independently." Cade turned from the screen to look at her. "Is that why you're a consultant rather than on a permanent team somewhere?" "I'm a consultant because I'm good at identifying problems and designing solutions, but I'd be terrible at implementation." Ramona leaned against her desk, and Cade noticed for the first time how tall she was, probably 5'9", with an athletic build that suggested she spent time outside of the office doing physical activities. "I don't have the patience for corporate politics or the gradualism that's required when you're embedded in an organization. I tell you what needs to change, and then I move on. Sounds lonely. It's efficient." But something in her voice made Cade think she wasn't as satisfied with that efficiency as she claimed to be. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. "Conference call," she said. Cade nodded and headed for the door, then paused. "How long is your contract with us?" "6 months. I'm 3 months in." Ramona picked up her phone. "Why?" "Just planning ahead." He left before she could ask what he meant by that. Over the following weeks, Cade found reasons to stop by Ramona's office between meetings. Sometimes he asked about her latest analysis. Other times, he simply wanted her opinion on problems his team was struggling with. She never seemed annoyed by the interruptions, though she also never wasted time on small talk. Their conversations were direct, focused, and surprisingly energizing. Patricia definitely noticed. "You're spending a lot of time on the 15th floor," she commented one Thursday afternoon when Cade returned from his 3rd visit that week. "Ramona has insights my team lacks," Cade said. "I'm sure she does." Patricia's tone was carefully neutral, which somehow made it more pointed. "Should I start scheduling your consulting reviews on the calendar?" "No," Cade paused. "Is it that obvious that you find her interesting?" "Yes," Patricia smiled slightly. "That you've done anything inappropriate?" "No, you've been very professional. I am professional." Cade sat on the edge of Patricia's desk, something he only did when he wanted her honest opinion about something personal. But you haven't dated anyone seriously in 3 years, Patricia said, and I've never seen you this engaged by someone's intelligence. Usually when people challenge you, you find it annoying. With her, you look energized. Cade thought about that. Patricia was right. After his last relationship had ended, when his then-girlfriend admitted she was more interested in his money than his company, he had thrown himself into work. There had been casual dates arranged by well-meaning friends, but nothing that sparked genuine interest. Ramona was different. She pushed back on his ideas without being disrespectful. She treated him like a smart businessman she respected rather than a wealthy man she wanted to impress. And she was compelling in a way he couldn't quite define, a combination of sharp intelligence, direct communication, and complete authenticity. "I think I like her," he admitted. "I know you do," Patricia said gently. "The question is what you're going to do about it." "Nothing, probably." Cade stood up. "She's a consultant. We have a professional relationship, and she's made it clear she doesn't stick around anywhere long-term. People's priorities change when they find the right reason to stay," Patricia said. Just something to consider. The next Monday's strategy meeting focused on the San Francisco property, which had been underperforming for 2 years. Marcus suggested reducing rates to compete with newer hotels in the area, but Cade disagreed. "We're a luxury brand," he said. "Lowering prices damages our positioning." "Your luxury brand is running at 62% occupancy," Marcus countered. "That's not sustainable." Cade looked at Ramona, who had been quietly reviewing something on her tablet. "You've been uncharacteristically silent, because you're both wrong." She pulled up a map of San Francisco with competing hotels marked in different colors. "Your occupancy problem isn't about price or brand positioning. It's about location perception. You're 3 blocks from Union Square, which was prime real estate 10 years ago, but the neighborhood has changed. Street-level retail vacancies are up 40%, and tourist foot traffic has shifted toward the waterfront development. Your hotel is in a location that feels less safe and less vibrant than it used to be." "We can't move the building," Marcus said dryly. "No, but you can change the guest experience to make location irrelevant." Ramona advanced her presentation. "Partner with the 3 high-end restaurants that opened near the waterfront. Offer complimentary car service to and from those locations. Promote your hotel as a quiet luxury retreat away from tourist congestion while providing seamless access to the best the city offers. You stop competing on location and start competing on curated experience." Cade studied her proposal. "That's a completely different marketing angle." "Because the problem isn't marketing," Ramona said. "It's product positioning. You have a beautiful hotel in a location that's become a liability. Make the location an asset by reframing the narrative." "This is why we pay her the ridiculous consulting fees," Cade said to Marcus, who had to smile despite himself. After the meeting, Cade walked Ramona back toward her office, something that had become their routine. "San Francisco is personal for me," he said. "That was the first hotel I bought after my father died. I put everything into the renovations." "I know." Ramona glanced at him. "That's in your company history. It's also probably why you've been resistant to changing the strategy there. Emotional attachment makes it harder to see problems clearly." "Is that your polite way of saying I've been stubborn?" "You haven't been stubborn. You've been loyal to a vision that worked for 15 years. The problem is the market evolved and the vision didn't." She stopped at her office door. "There's nothing wrong with caring about the properties you build, but successful business people know when to adapt." "What about you?" Cade asked. "Do you care about the businesses you consult for, or is it just data and strategy?" Ramona considered the question carefully. "I care about doing good work. I care about solving problems elegantly. Whether I care about the specific business depends on whether the people running it are genuinely trying to build something valuable or just trying to maximize profits at any cost." "And which category do we fall into?" "You fall into the category of someone who inherited a legacy and worked incredibly hard to honor it while also making it your own," Ramona said. "You care about your employees and the quality of your properties. The Ingram hotels have a reputation for treating staff well, which is rare in hospitality. So yes, I care about this project more than some others I've worked on." The honesty in her voice made something warm unfold in Cade's chest. "Thank you for that. It's just observation." But she smiled slightly, a real smile that reached her eyes, and Cade felt like he had won something valuable. That evening he stayed late at the office going through the San Francisco proposals. Around 7, Patricia knocked on his door. "I'm heading out. Do you need anything else today?" "No, go ahead." Cade glanced up. "Have a good evening. You too." Patricia paused. "The 15th floor is dark. Everyone left by 6. I'm aware of that." Cade tried to keep his tone neutral, just making sure you knew. Patricia smiled and left, and Cade couldn't help but laugh quietly at her completely unsubtle observation that Ramona had already gone home. He forced himself to focus on work for another hour, then packed up and headed down to the parking garage. His Mercedes was parked in its reserved spot, and he was unlocking the door when he heard footsteps echoing in the concrete space. Ramona emerged from the stairwell, wearing running clothes and carrying a gym bag. Her hair was damp with sweat, and she looked surprised to see him. "Late night?" she asked. "I could say the same." Cade glanced at her workout gear. "There's a gym in the building. I know. I run outside when the weather's good." Ramona gestured toward her car, a practical Honda sedan a few rows over. "There's a trail along the river that's perfect in the evenings." "How far do you run?" 5 miles usually. 7 if I'm working through a problem." She studied him. "You look like you're working through a problem." "San Francisco," Cade admitted. "I keep thinking about what you said about emotional attachment making it harder to see clearly." "That bothered you." "It was accurate." Cade leaned against his car. "My father started with nothing. He bought that hotel when everyone told him he was crazy, and he made it successful through sheer determination. After he died, I felt like I owed it to him to maintain what he built. The San Francisco property represents that legacy." "But your father wasn't sentimental," Ramona said. "I read about him when I was researching your company. He was known for making tough, practical decisions. If something wasn't working, he changed it." "True." "So honoring his legacy doesn't mean keeping everything exactly as he left it," Ramona continued. "It means maintaining his standards and his decision-making process, which includes adapting when necessary." Cade looked at her, this woman who had walked into his company 3 months ago, and systematically challenged everything he thought he knew about running his business. She stood in the parking garage in workout clothes with damp hair, and she was still the most compelling person he had encountered in years. "You're good at this," he said, "at consulting, at cutting through my defenses and making me reconsider things I thought were settled." Cade smiled. "It's inconvenient. That's not the word most of your executives would use." Ramona shifted her gym bag. "I know I'm not popular with your senior team. They respect you. They just don't enjoy being proven wrong." Cade straightened from his car. "Have you eaten dinner?" The question surprised them both. Ramona's eyes widened slightly. "I was planning to grab something at home. There's a good Thai place 2 blocks from here. We could discuss the San Francisco strategy over food." Cade knew he was crossing a line from professional to personal, but Patricia's words echoed in his mind. "Unless you'd rather not." Ramona was quiet for a long moment. "That would blur the consultant-client relationship." "It would," Cade agreed. "Is that a problem?" "I don't know yet." But she was smiling slightly. "What's the name of the restaurant?" They took separate cars and met at the Thai place, a small family-owned restaurant Cade had been going to for years. The owner, Suda, greeted him warmly and raised her eyebrows expressively when she saw Ramona. "Finally," Suda said. "A date. I was beginning to worry about you." "This is a business dinner," Cade said, though he knew that sounded unconvincing even to his own ears. "Of course it is." Suda showed them to a quiet corner table. "Business dinners where you both look nervous, very professional." After she left, Ramona laughed. "Does she always do that? She's known me for 8 years and appointed herself my unofficial relationship advisor." Cade opened the menu, though he already knew what he wanted. "I apologize for the commentary." "Don't. It's nice." Ramona scanned the options. "Do you come here often enough to have recommendations?" They spent the next 10 minutes discussing food, and Cade learned that Ramona was adventurous with flavors and preferred spicy dishes. When their orders were placed, She folded her hands on the table and looked at him directly. "Why did you really invite me to dinner?" she asked. "Because I wanted to have a conversation that wasn't about quarterly projections or renovation plans," Cade said honestly. "And because I enjoy your company. We've known each other for 3 months, and 98% of our interactions have been me telling you that your strategies need revision. I know. It's been the best 3 months I've had at work in years." Cade met her gaze. "You challenge me in ways that make me better at my job. That's valuable. But I also find you fascinating as a person, and I'd like to know more about you outside of spreadsheets and market analysis." Ramona took a sip of her water, and Cade could see her processing his words. "I'm a consultant," she said finally. "I have 3 months left on this contract, and then I move on to the next project. I don't do long-term well. Why not? Because I've structured my entire life around independence and efficiency." She spoke carefully, like she was explaining something she had examined many times before. "I'm 31 years old. I've lived in 7 cities in the past decade. I don't have houseplants because I'm never home enough to keep them alive. My longest relationship lasted 11 months and ended because he wanted me to stay in Seattle when I got offered a project in Boston." "So you chose the project." "I chose my career. It's what I'm good at, and it's where I find purpose." Ramona leaned forward slightly. "I'm telling you this because you seem like someone who invests deeply in people and relationships, and I don't want you to invest in something that won't last." "What if I think it's worth the risk?" Cade asked quietly. Their food arrived before she could answer, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Ramona said, "Tell me about the last person you dated seriously." Cade appreciated the direct approach. "Her name was Jennifer. We met at a charity function and dated for about a year. She was smart, attractive, and we had a good time together. Until I realized she was more interested in being with a hotel CEO than being with me specifically. She liked the lifestyle and the access my money provided. When I confronted her about it, she didn't deny it. That must have hurt." "It was clarifying," Cade said. "I realized I had been attracted to the idea of a relationship more than the actual person. We didn't challenge each other. We didn't push each other to be better. It was comfortable and surface level." He paused. "You're not surface level." "No," Ramona agreed. "I'm intense and demanding and difficult to keep up with. Ask anyone who's worked with me." "I have worked with you," Cade pointed out, "for 3 months. And I look forward to Monday morning meetings, which should tell you something about how I feel." She smiled at that, a genuine warm expression that transformed her face. "I look forward to them too. I spend Sunday evenings preparing arguments just to see if I can make you reconsider something you're confident about. So you do enjoy proving me wrong." "I enjoy engaging with someone who's smart enough to recognize when I'm right and secure enough to admit it." Ramona's expression turned more serious. "That's rare, Cade. Most executives I work with get defensive when I challenge them. You get curious. That's attractive. So you find me attractive." Cade felt something warm settle in his chest. "I find you attractive," Ramona confirmed. "And that complicates my professional objectivity." "What if we kept things professional for the next 3 months?" Cade suggested. "You finish your contract, deliver your recommendations, and the Morrison Group closes out the project. Then we see where things stand when we're no longer in a consultant-client relationship." Ramona considered this. "That's very logical. But I don't know if I can go back to just professional interaction after admitting this." She gestured between them. "Now I'm going to be thinking about this conversation every time we argue in a meeting. Then we'll both be distracted." Cade reached across the table and touched her hand lightly. "Maybe that's not the worst thing." They finished dinner talking about everything except work. Cade learned that Ramona had grown up in Portland. that she had a younger brother who taught high school math, that her parents had divorced when she was 16, and she had learned early to be independent. She loved hiking and terrible reality television and science fiction novels. She was terrible at cooking and admitted she lived mostly on takeout and protein bars. "That's tragic," Cade said. "You live in cities with amazing restaurants and you eat protein bars." "I don't have time to cook properly, and bad cooking is worse than convenient food." Ramona shrugged. "It's practical. It's sad. Food should be enjoyed, not just consumed efficiently," says the man who owns hotels with 5-star restaurants. But she was smiling. When they finally left the restaurant, it was nearly 10 o'clock. They stood by their cars in the parking lot, and Cade felt 18 again, nervous about saying the wrong thing. "This was good," Ramona said. "Thank you for dinner. We should do it again." Cade held her gaze. "As friends, if that's easier." "I'm not trying to pressure you into something you don't want. I know." Ramona unlocked her car but didn't get in immediately. "Cade, I like you. More than I should, given the circumstances. But I need to think about what that means and whether I can handle something that might become serious." "Fair enough." Cade stepped back to give her space. "Take whatever time you need." She nodded and drove away, and Cade stood in the parking lot for a few minutes feeling like something significant had shifted. He had put his feelings out there and she hadn't rejected them. That felt like progress. The following Monday, Ramona walked into the strategy meeting and took her usual seat. She met Cade's eyes briefly, and something passed between them that felt different from before. More aware, more charged. Marcus presented updated numbers on the Chicago restaurant redesign, and to everyone's surprise, Ramona simply nodded. "This looks solid. The capacity reduction and price point adjustment should work well. Good revision." Marcus looked stunned. "You're agreeing with us?" "I'm agreeing with good strategy," Ramona said. "That's what I'm here for." The meeting continued, and Cade found himself hyper-aware of Ramona's presence. The way she tilted her head when listening carefully. The way her fingers tapped against her tablet when she was thinking. The way she looked at him when she was about to challenge a point, giving him a split second of warning before she launched into her argument. When she did challenge the marketing budget allocation for their Boston property, it felt different somehow. Still professional, still data-driven, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Like they were having two conversations simultaneously, the surface discussion about business strategy, and a deeper dialogue about understanding and respecting each other. After the meeting, they walked to the elevator together. "You agreed with Marcus," Cade said, "because he was right. I'm not contrary for sport." Ramona pressed the button. "Though I'm sure he thinks I am. He's adjusting, they all are." The elevator arrived empty and they stepped inside. Cade pressed 15, then turned to her. "Have you thought more about what we discussed?" "I've thought about little else," Ramona admitted, "which is problematic when I'm supposed to be focused on your hospitality strategy." "Come to San Francisco with me," Cade said impulsively. She looked at him in surprise. "What?" "I'm flying out Friday to review the property in person. Come with me. You designed the new positioning strategy. You should see the location firsthand and help implement it." Cade kept his tone professional despite the personal nature of the request. "It makes business sense." "It does," Ramona agreed slowly. "It also means spending an entire weekend together. We'll have separate hotel rooms, separate floors if you want, but yes, it means time together outside this building." Cade met her eyes. "I think that could be good. For the project and for figuring out what's happening between us." The elevator reached 15. Ramona stood in the doorway, holding it open. "Friday to Sunday." "Friday to Sunday," Cade confirmed. "Business trip with the possibility of personal conversation." "Okay," Ramona said. "But I'm paying for my own flight." The company is paying for the flight. You're consulting on the property. Fine. But I'm paying for my own meals outside of business discussions. Ramona, Cade smiled. Are you always this stubborn about everything? Yes, she said simply. You should probably know that about me now. Friday morning, they met at the airport. Cade had considered booking a private jet, but decided that felt too much like showing off. They flew commercial first class, and Ramona spent most of the flight working on her laptop while Cade caught up on email. Do you ever relax? He asked as they began their descent into San Francisco. I'm relaxed right now. Ramona didn't look up from her screen. This is what relaxed looks like for me. That's genuinely concerning. She smiled and finally closed the laptop. I'll try to be less intense this weekend. For your benefit. Don't. Cade surprised himself with the honesty. I like that you're intense. It's part of what makes you compelling. They rented a car and drove directly to the hotel, where the property manager gave them a comprehensive tour. Ramona asked pointed questions about everything from neighborhood safety perception to guest complaint patterns. Cade watched her work, seeing the way her mind processed information and connected disparate details into coherent strategy. The hotel itself is beautiful, Ramona said when they finished the tour. The problem really is the neighborhood context. Have you walked around the area recently? Not in about 6 months. Then we should. Ramona checked her watch. It's 4 in the afternoon. Prime time to see how the neighborhood functions for tourists and business travelers. They spent the next 2 hours walking the blocks around the hotel. Ramona was right, the area had changed noticeably. Several storefronts were vacant, and the streets felt less vibrant than Cade remembered. But she also pointed out positive elements. A new coffee roaster that had opened nearby, a boutique hotel that was succeeding by targeting a younger demographic, good public transportation access. It's not dead, Ramona concluded as they circled back toward the hotel. It's transitioning. You need to position your property for the neighborhood it's becoming, not the one it used to be. They had dinner at one of the waterfront restaurants Ramona had suggested partnering with. The place was packed, energetic, and the food was excellent. Cade could see why tourists flocked here instead of staying near Union Square. If you offer car service to places like this, Ramona said, gesturing around the restaurant, your hotel becomes a home base for exploration rather than a destination unto itself. That's actually more valuable for business travelers who want local experience without the hassle of research and navigation. You're working again, Cade pointed out, because this is the project. But Ramona set down her fork and leaned back. Okay, you're right. No more business talk tonight. Tell me something about yourself that isn't related to hotels. Cade thought about it. I play piano. Really? My mother insisted on lessons when I was young. I hated it at the time, but now I find it meditative. When I'm stressed, I play. He smiled. Badly, but with enthusiasm. I would like to hear that sometime. Ramona's expression was warm. What do you play when you're stressed? Billy Joel, mostly. Some Elton John. My taste is firmly stuck in the 1970s and 80s. Cade felt himself relaxing into the conversation. What do you do when you're stressed? Run until my legs hurt and my mind goes quiet, Ramona said. Or watch terrible reality shows where people compete to create elaborate cakes or find love on tropical islands. The complete absence of intellectual engagement is soothing. They talked through dessert, and when they finally left the restaurant, it was nearly 11. The walk back to their car took them along the waterfront, and Cade felt the tension that had been building all week start to ease. This felt right, talking with Ramona about nothing important, being in her company without the structure of meetings and presentations. Thank you for inviting me, Ramona said as they reached the car. Thank you for coming. Cade unlocked the doors but didn't immediately get in. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why do you really move around so much?" Cade kept his tone gentle. "You said it's about your career, but you're successful enough that you could choose to stay somewhere if you wanted to." Ramona was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the dark water. "Because staying means getting attached, and attachment means vulnerability. If I keep moving, I control the narrative. I leave before anyone can leave me." "That sounds lonely." "It's safe," Ramona corrected. "Or it has been. Until recently, I didn't question whether safe was the same as happy." "What changed?" Cade asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "I met someone who made me wonder what I might be missing." She turned to face him. "Someone who seems to genuinely like the parts of me that usually drive people away. Who doesn't want me to be less intense or less direct or less challenging." "That someone sounds smart," Cade said softly. "That someone is standing very close right now," Ramona said. "And I'm trying to remember why we decided to keep things professional for 3 more months. Because it was the logical thing to do." Cade stepped closer, giving her time to move away if she wanted. "But I'm discovering that logic isn't always the most important factor." "That's very unlike you. You're very unlike anyone else." Ramona closed the final distance between them and kissed him. It was tentative at first, a question more than a statement, but Cade responded immediately. His hands came up to frame her face and she pressed closer, and suddenly 3 months felt like an impossibly long time to wait. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "That was unprofessional," Ramona said. "Extremely." Cade rested his forehead against hers. "Want to be unprofessional again?" She laughed and kissed him again, longer this time, and Cade felt something click into place. This woman, with her sharp intelligence and stubborn independence and complete authenticity, was exactly what he had been missing without knowing it. They eventually made it back to the hotel and went to their separate rooms, but Cade lay awake for a long time thinking about the kiss and what it meant. He was falling for Ramona Anderson, and it was both terrifying and exhilarating. The next morning they met for breakfast at a cafe near the hotel. Ramona looked like she had slept as little as he had, but there was a lightness in her expression that made Cade's chest feel warm. "So," she said, wrapping her hands around a large coffee mug, "we kissed last night." "We did." Cade smiled. "Regrets?" "None. Questions, but no regrets." Ramona took a sip of coffee. "What are we doing, Cade?" "I think we're figuring out if this could be something real," he said honestly. "And I think we both know it already is, which is what's scary." "I've never felt this way about someone I've known for such a short time," Ramona admitted. "Usually I need months to feel comfortable with someone, but with you, it's been easy from the start, even when we're arguing. Especially when we're arguing." Cade reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't want to pressure you into changing your life or your career, but I also don't want to pretend this isn't happening. So we see where it goes." Ramona laced her fingers through his. "Even though the logistics are complicated and I'm terrible at relationships and you have a company to run, even though all of that," Cade squeezed her hand, "because I think you're worth the complication." They spent the rest of Saturday exploring the city together, mixing business assessment with personal time. Ramona identified 6 potential restaurant and entertainment partners for the hotel car service program. They tested the actual drive times and discussed how to market the service. But they also held hands while walking through Fisherman's Wharf, shared ice cream despite the cool weather, and talked about everything from childhood memories to future aspirations. That evening, they had dinner at the hotel's current restaurant, which Cade admitted was mediocre at best. "This is part of the problem," he said, looking at his overcooked steak. If our own food isn't drawing people in, we're losing the opportunity to create memorable experiences. The new restaurant concept will fix that, Ramona assured him. But you need to hire the right chef and give them creative freedom. Don't micromanage the menu. I don't micromanage. Ramona raised an eyebrow. You have opinions on everything from thread count on sheets to the font size on room service menus. That's called having standards. That's called micromanaging. But she was smiling. It comes from caring deeply about the product, which is admirable. Just remember that experts in their field need room to do their best work. Is that advice about the restaurant or about you? Cade asked. Both, probably. Ramona set down her fork. I know I'm difficult to work with sometimes. I come in with strong opinions and I don't soften my criticism. But it's because I care about delivering excellent results. I know. Cade reached across the table for her hand, and I appreciate it. Even when it means admitting I was wrong about something I was certain of. You're going to have to get used to that if we're together, Ramona warned. I'm right about most things. Most things. 95% of things. Cade laughed. I'll take those odds. They went up to Cade's room after dinner, ostensibly to review the day's notes. But the notes got abandoned quickly in favor of sitting on the couch talking and kissing and learning the shape of each other. Ramona fit against him perfectly, and Cade found himself thinking about what it would be like to have this all the time, to come home to her sharp wit and warm presence. What are you thinking? Ramona asked, her head resting on his shoulder. That I don't want this weekend to end, Cade admitted. And that 3 months suddenly feels like forever. We don't have to wait 3 months. Ramona tilted her head to look at him. I mean, professionally we should maintain boundaries, but personally we could figure this out as we go. You're okay with that? With trying a relationship while you're still consulting for me? I think the professional relationship and the personal one can coexist if we're clear about boundaries, Ramona said carefully. In meetings, I'm still going to challenge your strategies. I'm not going to soften my analysis because we're dating. Can you handle that? I think I'd be disappointed if you did anything else, Cade said honestly. The arguing is part of what I love about you. The word hung in the air between them. Love. It was too soon to say it, and Cade wished he could take it back, but Ramona's expression softened. That's a big word for someone you've known less than 4 months, she said quietly. I know. I'm not saying it officially, just acknowledging that I'm heading in that direction. Cade met her eyes. You terrify me, Ramona, because I can already see how much it's going to hurt if this doesn't work. It terrifies me too. She kissed him softly. But I think I'm heading in the same direction, which is new for me. Usually I'm looking for the exit by this point in a relationship. What's different this time? You, Ramona settled back against him. You make me want to stay. They flew back Sunday afternoon, both quieter than usual. The weekend had changed things, made their connection undeniable, and now they had to figure out how to navigate it in the real world. Will you have dinner with me tomorrow? Cade asked as they collected their bags at baggage claim. I have dinner with you at least twice a week already, Ramona pointed out. As a date. A real date where we dress up and I take you somewhere nice and we don't talk about hotels at all. Ramona smiled. Okay, but somewhere that doesn't require a reservation 6 months in advance. I don't like places where the food is more about theater than taste. Deal. Cade walked her to her car. Thank you for this weekend. Thank you for inviting me. Ramona kissed him quickly, conscious of the public setting. See you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock strategy meeting, where you'll probably tell me something I'm doing is wrong. Almost certainly. She grinned and drove away, and Cade stood watching her taillights until they disappeared into traffic. Monday morning arrived, and Cade found himself nervous walking into the strategy meeting. He wasn't sure how their new dynamic would play out in front of his executive team. But when Ramona walked in, she was completely professional, taking her usual seat and reviewing her notes like nothing had changed. Marcus presented the San Francisco implementation timeline, and Ramona listened carefully before speaking. The restaurant partnerships are solid, but your timeline for the car service launch is aggressive. You're giving yourself 6 weeks to negotiate contracts with 6 different restaurants, train your driving staff, and build a reservation system. That's not realistic. We want to launch before summer travel season, Marcus said. Then launch with 3 restaurant partners and add the others as contracts close, Ramona suggested. Better to launch something that works than to rush and create a bad experience that damages your reputation. She's right, Cade said. Marcus, revise the timeline. We'll do a phased rollout. The meeting continued, and Cade noticed that while Ramona was as direct as ever, there was something in the way she looked at him now. A warmth beneath the professional exterior, an awareness that hadn't been there before. After the meeting, Cade's senior team lingered. She's good, Marcus admitted. I didn't want to like her, but her analysis is consistently sound. She knows what she's doing, Cade agreed neutrally. You two seem to have developed a good working rhythm, Patricia added, her tone carefully innocent. The arguing has become almost friendly. Cade met Patricia's eyes and saw the knowing look there. She definitely suspected something had changed. We understand each other, he said simply. That makes collaboration easier. Over the following weeks, Cade and Ramona found a balance. In meetings, they maintained professional distance, though Cade caught himself watching her more than he should. Outside of work, they explored their connection through dinners and long conversations and nights spent at each other's apartments. Ramona's place was minimalist and impersonal, exactly what she had warned him about. There were no photographs on the walls, no personal touches beyond practical furniture, and a well-organized workspace. It felt like temporary housing rather than a home. I told you I don't do permanent well, Ramona said, catching his expression as he looked around. I've lived here 6 months and it still looks like I moved in yesterday. You could make it more personal, Cade suggested gently, even if it's temporary. Why invest energy in a space I'm leaving? But Ramona looked around her apartment like she was seeing it through new eyes. Though I admit it's depressing when you put it that way. Come stay at my place sometimes, Cade offered. It's definitely more lived in. Cade's penthouse apartment reflected 15 years of actually inhabiting a space. There were books on the shelves, art on the walls that he had chosen himself, a piano in the corner that showed signs of regular use. Ramona ran her fingers over the piano keys when she first visited. Play something for me, she said. I warned you that I'm terrible. I don't care. I want to hear what you play when you're stressed. Cade sat down and worked his way through a clumsy version of Piano Man. He wasn't exaggerating about his skill level. He hit wrong notes, and his timing was off, but Ramona stood beside the piano watching him with such affection that he forgot to be embarrassed. That was perfect, she said when he finished. That was objectively bad. It was perfectly you. Ramona leaned down and kissed him. Thank you for sharing it with me. Those moments of domesticity terrified and thrilled Cade in equal measure. Every time Ramona let him further into her carefully controlled world, it felt like a gift. She was slowly unfolding, revealing the softer parts of herself that she usually kept hidden. One evening in late spring, about 5 months into Ramona's contract, they were having dinner at Cade's apartment when she said abruptly, I was offered a new consulting project. Cade's hand stilled on his wine glass. When? The Morrison Group contacted me yesterday. It's a resort chain in Hawaii. 6-month project starting in 2 months. Ramona wasn't looking at him, which told him everything about how difficult this conversation was for her. It's exactly the kind of high-profile work I've been building my career toward. But you don't want to take it. Cade kept his voice carefully neutral. I don't know what I want. Ramona finally met his eyes. 2 months ago, I would have accepted immediately without question. Now I'm sitting here thinking about what leaving would mean and feeling confused about my own priorities. What do you want me to say? Cade asked quietly. I don't know. Maybe that this is hard for you too, that you've thought about what happens when my contract here ends. Ramona's voice was tight with frustration, but Cade suspected it was directed at herself rather than him. I've built my entire adult life around being independent and mobile, and now I'm with someone who has a business that requires him to stay in one place. The logistics don't work. They could work if we wanted them to badly enough, Cade said. Long-distance relationships are possible. Are they? Have you ever done long distance? No, Cade admitted. But I've never felt like this about someone before either, so all of this is new territory. Ramona stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. I'm afraid I'm going to resent you if I stay, or resent myself if I go and lose you. Either way, someone gets hurt. Cade went to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What if you didn't have to choose? What if there was a third option? Like what? Like working for Ingram Hotels directly instead of as a consultant. Cade felt her stiffen in his arms. Before you say no, hear me out. You're brilliant at what you do. Over the past 5 months, your strategies have increased our overall occupancy by 8% and our guest satisfaction scores by 12%. I want you on my team permanently. As what? Your girlfriend who also works for you. Ramona's tone was sharp. That's a terrible idea for about 15 different reasons. As my chief strategy officer, Cade said, it's a position I've needed to fill for 2 years. You would have complete authority over all property positioning, marketing strategy, and competitive analysis. You'd report directly to me but have independence in how you run your department. And yes, you'd be dating the CEO, which creates complications, but we're adults who can maintain professional boundaries. Ramona turned in his arms to face him. You're serious, completely. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Cade kept his hands on her waist, anchoring them both. I know you value your independence and mobility. This job would give you travel opportunities to all our properties. You'd still get the variety and challenge you need. But you'd also have a home base and a team to build. And you'd have me if you want that. If I want that, Ramona repeated softly. Cade, I'm falling in love with you. That's the problem. I didn't plan for this, and I don't know how to integrate it into the life I've built. So build a different life. Cade touched her face gently. One that has room for love and career and challenge. You don't have to keep running, Ramona. Not unless that's what you truly want. She was quiet for a long time, and Cade forced himself to be patient. This was her decision, and he couldn't push her into it. Finally, she said, I need time to think about this. The job offer, what it would mean for us, all of it. Take whatever time you need, Cade said. The position will be there whenever you're ready to decide. They spent the rest of the evening in careful conversation, both of them aware that they were standing at a crossroads. When Ramona left that night, she kissed him with something like desperation, and Cade wondered if she was already saying goodbye. The following week's strategy meeting was tense. Ramona was professional but distant, and Cade found himself distracted by watching her. Marcus noticed. Everything okay? He asked after the meeting ended. Fine, Cade said, which was a complete lie. He had barely slept, worrying about Ramona's decision and what it would mean for them. That afternoon, Patricia buzzed his office. Ramona Anderson is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Send her in. Cade stood up as Ramona entered. She looked tired, like she had also spent the week not sleeping, but there was determination in her expression. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said without preamble, "and I have questions." "Okay." Cade gestured to the couch in his office and they sat down together. "Ask whatever you need to." "If I take this position and we break up, what happens?" Ramona asked bluntly. "Because if dating you is contingent on working for you, that's not a relationship I can commit to." "If we break up, you'd still have the job," Cade said immediately. "I'm offering you this position because you're the best person for it, not as leverage to keep you in my life romantically. Those are separate decisions. But it would be awkward, probably, but we're both professionals, we'd figure it out." Cade met her eyes. "What else?" "Why do you want me to stay?" Ramona asked. "Really? Is it because you love the work I do or because you love me?" "Both," Cade said honestly. "I think you're exceptional at your job and I want that expertise on my team permanently. I also think I'm falling in love with you, and the idea of you leaving feels unbearable. But I'm trying to separate those two things because they deserve to be separate." "What if I'm not good at being in love?" Ramona's voice was quieter now. "What if I take this job and stay and then realize I can't do the relationship part? I'll have disrupted my entire career for something that didn't work out. Or you'll have taken a calculated risk on something that could be extraordinary," Cade countered. "Ramona, I can't promise this will be easy or that we won't struggle. But I can promise that I'll respect your independence and support your career and never ask you to be less than you are. That's worth something." Ramona looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "I turned down the Hawaii project." Cade's heart jumped. "When?" "Yesterday. Before I had made any decisions about your offer, I knew I didn't want to go to Hawaii because it would mean leaving you, and that felt wrong in a way I couldn't ignore." She took a breath. "So I'm already all in on the relationship part, apparently, which terrifies me." "It terrifies me too," Cade admitted. "You could devastate me, Ramona. You have that power already." "Then we're both risking something real." Ramona reached for his hand. "Okay, I'll take the job. I want to be your chief strategy officer and your girlfriend and see if I can build something permanent for once in my life." Cade pulled her into his arms, relief and joy flooding through him. "You won't regret this." "I might," Ramona said against his shoulder. "But I'll regret not trying even more." They stayed like that for several minutes before Patricia's voice came through the intercom. "Cade, you have a call with investors in 5 minutes. I'll be right there." Cade pulled back to look at Ramona. "We should celebrate tonight, properly." "Dinner at our Thai place," Ramona suggested. "Suda will be thrilled." Cade kissed her softly. "She's been asking about you." "She's been asking when you're going to admit you're serious about me," Ramona corrected. "Now you have an answer." Cade watched her leave, then returned to his desk feeling lighter than he had in days. Patricia appeared in his doorway with a knowing smile. "She's staying," Patricia said. "She's staying," Cade confirmed. "And joining the team as chief strategy officer. You work fast." Patricia's smile widened. "Good. You two are good together. Even when you're arguing in meetings, anyone can see there's respect there. That's rare." The next few weeks were busy with transitioning Ramona from consultant to permanent employee. The Morrison Group negotiated her release from their contracts, and Cade's legal team drafted an employment agreement that gave her significant autonomy. The announcement to the senior leadership team happened on a Monday morning, and reactions were mixed. Marcus looked surprised. "I didn't realize we were hiring for that position." "We've needed strategic leadership for a while," Cade said. "Ramona has proven herself over the past 6 months. This makes sense." "It makes sense professionally," agreed Jennifer Cole, the VP of Operations. "I'm just wondering about the personal angle. Are you two involved?" The direct question hung in the air. Cade had expected it eventually but still felt unprepared. Before he could respond, Ramona spoke up. "Yes, we're dating," she said calmly. "I understand that creates potential conflicts of interest. I want to be transparent about that from the start. My professional recommendations will always be based on data and strategy, not personal considerations. If anyone ever feels that my relationship with Cade is compromising my objectivity, I want to hear about it immediately." The room was quiet. Then Marcus said, "Fair enough. As long as the work quality stays high, your personal life is your business." The others nodded agreement and the meeting moved on. Afterward, Cade caught Ramona in the hallway. "That was brave. It was necessary." Ramona shrugged. "I'm not going to pretend we're not together. That would make everything more complicated, not less. Still, thank you for handling it directly." Over the following months, Cade watched Ramona settle into her new role with impressive skill. She built a strategy team, implemented new analytics systems, and continued to challenge every assumption the company made about its properties. But she also became less guarded personally, letting him see the vulnerable parts of herself she usually kept hidden. One Saturday morning, Cade woke to find Ramona sitting at his piano, picking out a simple melody with one finger. She was wearing one of his shirts and had her hair down, and she looked more relaxed than he had ever seen her. "What are you playing?" he asked from the bedroom doorway. "Nothing, just making noise." She looked up with a soft smile. "Your apartment feels like home now. That's new for me." "Good new or scary new?" Cade came to sit beside her on the piano bench. "Both." Ramona leaned against him. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to realize I'm too difficult or too intense, or for me to get restless and want to leave. But neither of those things is happening, and I don't know what to do with that." "Maybe just accept it," Cade suggested. "Accept that this works and stop waiting for it to fail. You make it sound easy. It's not easy, but it's worth the effort." Cade kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Ramona. I should probably officially say that." She turned to look at him, eyes wide. "You love me." "I love you," Cade confirmed. "I love how smart you are and how you challenge me and how you're never fake or manipulative. I love that you eat terrible food and watch ridiculous television and run until you can't think anymore. I love your intensity and your stubbornness and the way you argue every point I make in meetings. All of it." Ramona's eyes were suspiciously bright. "I love you too." "Which is terrifying and wonderful, and I still don't entirely understand it, but it's true." They kissed, and it felt different somehow. More settled, more certain, like something that had been undefined had finally crystallized into something they could both hold on to. The rest of that day was quiet and domestic. They made breakfast together, though Ramona's cooking skills were as bad as advertised, and Cade ended up rescuing the eggs. They went for a run along the river trail, and Cade discovered that Ramona really did run at a punishing pace when she was processing emotions. They spent the afternoon reading on the couch, comfortable in the shared silence. "Is this what people mean by contentment?" Ramona asked at one point. "I think so." Cade set down his book. "Does it feel okay?" "It feels strange. But good strange." She smiled at him. "I could get used to this." As months turned into a year, their relationship deepened into something solid and enduring. Ramona thrived in her role at Ingram Hotels, implementing strategies that increased profitability across all properties. She still argued with Cade in meetings, still challenged his assumptions, but now everyone understood that the arguing was how they refined ideas together rather than personal conflict. The following spring, Cade took Ramona back to San Francisco for the grand reopening of the redesigned hotel. The neighborhood positioning strategy had worked brilliantly. Occupancy was up 23%, and guest reviews consistently praised the curated local experience and the quiet luxury of the property. "You were right about everything," Cade said as they toured the renovated space. "I usually am," Ramona said, but she was smiling. "Though you made the hard decision to actually implement the changes. That takes courage." They had dinner at the hotel's new restaurant, which was everything they had envisioned, intimate, exclusive, with food that was genuinely exceptional. Cade had reserved the private dining room, which Ramona assumed was just for a quiet meal. But when dessert arrived, there was a ring on the plate. Ramona stared at it, then at Cade. "Is that what I think it is? If you think it's an engagement ring, then yes." Cade took the ring and got down on one knee beside her chair. "Ramona Anderson, you walked into my company 18 months ago and systematically dismantled every comfortable assumption I had about my business and my life. You challenge me, you inspire me, and you make me better at everything I do. I love you completely, including and especially your habit of arguing every point I make. Will you marry me?" Ramona's hands were shaking. "You want to marry me? Me, who lived in 7 cities in 10 years and can't keep a houseplant alive and whose idea of dinner is protein bars." "I want to marry you," Cade confirmed. "Not despite those things, but including them. You're allowed to still be yourself. I'm just asking if you want to be yourself with me permanently." "Yes." Ramona's voice broke. "Yes, I want to marry you. This is terrifying and I'm going to be bad at it sometimes. But yes." Cade slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms. She was crying, which he had never seen before, and he held her while she processed the enormity of what they were committing to. "I never thought I'd do this," Ramona said eventually. "I convinced myself I wasn't built for permanent relationships, but you make me want to stay. You make me want to be better," Cade said. "Every single day. That's what love is supposed to be." They flew back home the next morning, and the news of their engagement spread quickly through the company. Patricia cried and said she knew it would happen. Marcus gave Cade a congratulatory handshake and told him he was lucky. Jennifer Cole hugged Ramona and said it was about time. The Monday morning strategy meeting was different. When Ramona challenged the marketing budget for the Boston property, Marcus just laughed. "Here we go again. The engaged couple still arguing. Just because we're getting married doesn't mean I'm going to let bad strategy slide," Ramona said. "I would be disappointed if you did," Cade replied, and everyone in the room could see the affection beneath the professional banter. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the San Francisco hotel that had brought them together. Ramona wore a simple, elegant dress and carried no flowers because she said she didn't understand the point of dead plants. Cade wore a navy suit and couldn't stop smiling. They wrote their own vows, and Ramona promised to always tell him the truth even when it was inconvenient, while Cade promised to keep arguing with her forever, because that was when they were most alive. Sudha from the Thai restaurant catered the dinner, insisting that she needed to be part of their love story. "I knew from the first dinner," she told everyone who would listen. "I saw how they looked at each other and I knew." 2 years after the wedding, Cade walked into a Monday morning strategy meeting to find Ramona reviewing a presentation with particular intensity. She had recently returned from maternity leave after their daughter Maya was born, and she looked tired but energized. "This expansion proposal for Denver is flawed," she announced without preamble. "Good morning to you too," Marcus said dryly. "What's wrong with it? You're assuming the market dynamics that worked in Seattle will translate directly to Colorado. They won't. The demographic is younger, the price sensitivity is higher, and the competition is more established." Ramona pulled up her counter-analysis. "But if we adjust the amenity package and position it as mountain modern instead of urban luxury, We can capture a different segment entirely. Cade listened to her dismantle the proposal with data and alternatives, and he felt the same warm satisfaction he had felt in their first meeting 3.5 years ago. She was still brilliant, still uncompromising, still willing to argue every point he made. After the meeting, they walked back to his office together. Maya's picture sat on his desk now, a chubby baby with Ramona's eyes and Cade's smile. "I missed this," Ramona admitted. "Being home with Maya was wonderful, but I also missed the intellectual challenge of strategy work." "The team missed you," Cade said. "Marcus told me last week that meetings were boring without you there to tell everyone they are wrong." "I don't tell everyone they're wrong, just the people who are wrong." But Ramona was smiling. "Did you know that's what Maya's daycare teacher said? That she's very opinionated for a 6-month-old. I think she gets that from both of us. Definitely both of us." Cade pulled Ramona close. "I love our life. The arguing, the work, the baby who already has opinions about everything. All of it. Even when I systematically dismantle your strategies in front of your entire leadership team. Especially then." Cade kissed her softly. "That's when I remember why I fell in love with you in the first place." Ramona kissed him back, then pulled away with a teasing smile. "You know the Phoenix renovation proposal you approved last week? I think we need to reconsider the timeline." "Of course you do." But Cade was smiling. "Same time, same meeting room, wouldn't miss it." Ramona headed for the door, then looked back. "I love you, even when you're wrong about renovation timelines. I love you, especially when you're telling me I'm wrong." Cade watched her leave, then returned to his desk feeling grateful for every argument, every challenge, every moment that had led them here. 5 years later, Cade stood in the boardroom watching Ramona present the 5-year strategic plan to the board of directors. Their son Lucas was 3 now, and Maya was starting 1st grade. Ramona had been promoted to Chief Operating Officer 2 years ago and was being discussed as Cade's eventual successor when he decided to step back from daily operations. She stood at the head of the table, confident and compelling, walking the board through expansion plans and market analysis with the same precision she had brought to her very first presentation. And when one of the board members questioned her timeline for the Miami property development, Ramona defended her position with data and logic that left no room for argument. Cade watched her and felt the same surge of admiration and attraction he had felt in their first meeting. She was still the woman who argued every point he made, who challenged him to be better, who refused to settle for comfortable assumptions. She was also the woman who had learned to build a home, to stay in one place, to let herself be loved without running away. After the presentation ended and the board members filed out, Ramona collapsed into a chair. "That was exhausting." "That was perfect," Cade corrected. "You had them convinced in the first 10 minutes. Except for Johnson. He always pushes back on aggressive timelines." Ramona closed her laptop. "But I expected that. His questions were actually helpful for stress testing the plan." "You like it when people argue with you," Cade observed. "I like it when people engage with the material instead of just rubber-stamping proposals." Ramona stood and came to where Cade was leaning against the table. "Kind of like how you engage when I tell you your strategies need work." "I learned from the best." Cade pulled her close. "We should celebrate. The presentation was excellent and the board approved everything." "We should go home," Ramona countered. "Maya has a school project due tomorrow that she probably forgot about, and Lucas needs to be picked up from daycare by 6. Celebrations can wait." "That's very domestic and responsible of you. I know, I've changed." But Ramona was smiling. "Though I still think your approach to the Atlanta property management restructuring is flawed, and we should argue about it over dinner." "Looking forward to it." Cade kissed her. Then they gathered their things and headed home together, still arguing about timelines and strategies and all the details that made their professional and personal partnership work. That night, after the kids were in bed and the forgotten school project was completed, they sat on the couch in the living room of the house they had bought 2 years ago. Ramona had slowly filled it with personal touches, photos on the walls and plants that somehow stayed alive despite her concerns. It was a home in a way her old apartment never had been, rooted and permanent. "You ever miss it?" Cade asked. The moving around, the independence, the freedom to just leave when a project ended. Ramona thought about it seriously. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it. Everything fit in 3 suitcases and I could make decisions without considering how they'd affect anyone else." She laced her fingers through his. "But I don't miss being lonely, and I was lonely even though I didn't admit it at the time. This is better, messier and more complicated, but better. Even with all the arguing," Cade teased, "especially with the arguing." Ramona settled against him. "That's how we show love, by caring enough to challenge each other to be better. So when you tell me tomorrow that the Atlanta restructuring is wrong, that's actually a declaration of affection." "Exactly," Ramona laughed. "I'm glad you finally understand." They sat in comfortable silence, and Cade thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first meeting, where Ramona had fearlessly dismantled his renovation plans, through the dinners and the conversations and the slow building of trust, through her decision to stay, their engagement, the wedding, the children, and all the daily negotiations that made up a life together. It had been challenging, as Ramona had warned. She was still intense and demanding and stubbornly independent about certain things. Cade was still prone to micromanaging and having strong opinions about details that probably didn't matter. But they had learned to navigate each other's rough edges, to appreciate the qualities that sometimes drove them crazy, and they had built something extraordinary. A partnership that was both professional and personal, grounded in respect and challenge and genuine affection. A family that somehow accommodated Ramona's need for intellectual stimulation and Cade's desire for deep roots. A love that thrived on argument and debate rather than being threatened by it. "What are you thinking?" Ramona asked, tilting her head to look at him. "That I'm grateful," Cade said honestly, "for every meeting where you told me I was wrong, for every argument that made our strategies better. For the fact that you stayed when you could have left. I'm grateful too." Ramona kissed him softly. For someone who was secure enough to hire a consultant who argued with him. For someone who saw my intensity as an asset instead of a problem. For a partner who makes me want to keep showing up even when it's hard. "Always," Cade promised. "I'll always show up for this, for us." "Good." Ramona settled back against him. "Because tomorrow we're having the Atlanta argument and I have data you haven't seen yet. I look forward to it." Cade smiled and held her close, already anticipating the next meeting, the next debate, the next opportunity to be challenged and surprised and made better by the woman who had argued her way into his life and never stopped pushing him to be more than he thought possible. It was, he thought, exactly the kind of love story he had always needed. Not smooth or easy or predictable, but alive with tension and growth and genuine connection. The kind of partnership where 2 strong people made each other stronger, where disagreement was a form of intimacy, where the arguing itself became the foundation for something enduring. And every Monday morning, when they gathered in that boardroom with the senior team, Cade still found himself looking forward to whatever Ramona would challenge next. Because he knew that her willingness to push back, to demand better, to never settle for comfortable assumptions, was proof that she cared. About the work, about the company, about him. That was worth every argument, every difficult conversation, every moment of being proven wrong. Because being wrong with Ramona meant learning something new, growing together, building something that neither of them could have created alone. And that, Cade thought as he kissed the top of her head and felt her relax completely against him, was exactly what love was supposed to be.